Hey, welcome everybody. We've moved a little bit further to the north and sort of west. In other words, we're moving up and northward up the Shiloh battlefield as the Union Army will eventually be pushed back toward Pittsburgh Landing. And I'm inside Shiloh Church. This is not the original structure, but there was a structure here at the time. It did not last very long after the battle, but eventually one would be reconstructed on the same ground after there's another church built right next door to here. Parker might say a little bit more about that. But note that Shiloh Church is right in the middle of the action. There's the church there. You see the Confederate wave, the juggernaut, rolling over Sherman's and I think some of McClernand's men as well here. So we've got a lot to talk about, but we wanted to start inside this church because it lends its name to the entire battlefield. I think originally it was probably one of those things where the church is split, like so much of the nation, over slavery and not. And, you know, one group came and formed their own church and placed it here, Shiloh, place of peace. So let me bring on Parker Hills, who knows so much more about it and can say it in a decidedly more interesting manner than I can. Parker, battle focus tours.
Well, we're here in Shiloh Church, as Garry mentioned. On the east side of the Tennessee River, the people were anti-slavery. The west side of the river, this was a more of a slave area here. All of this land is pretty poor land up here. There's not much plantation land up here. Really not a lot of slaves up in this part of the country. The land is just not very good. Rocky, not good soil, certainly no cotton plantations, nothing like that up here. But the Shiloh Church, Methodist Church, it did survive the battle. There are some who say it burned. It did not. I found a nice diary account of Grant's dentist, who mentioned that the soldiers were carving souvenirs out of this church. Gosh, go figure, soldiers carving souvenirs. And I also remember that lots of civilians came here after the battle. And finally they said one soldier leaned his rifle against the side of the church and the whole building collapsed. He just barely got out of the way before it collapsed from all of the wood that had been carved away. A more modern church was built here at the site of the old church. And this church was built just about 100 feet or so from the modern church, so it's not on the exact spot. Couldn't be because there's a modern church there. And then, of course, there's a cemetery here that belongs to the Shiloh Methodist Church. Garry?
All right, good. Well, I think what we're going to do is we wanted to start in here because, you know, this is an iconic place and it's a beautiful place to shoot a video. But let's follow Parker on outside here and let's set up the action. By way of reminder, here we are. It is April 6th. Things are already starting to not go well for the Union, the Confederates. Despite all of their foibles, and please watch your step. That's Chris Mikowski behind the camera there. Despite all their foibles and miscommunications, have managed to get superior forces onto this field, overwhelming the Union soldiers near Fraley Field, overwhelming and moving in a mile-wide advance and more as they start to move ever closer, not toward their objective, which was really to push the Union over toward Owl Creek and whatnot, but rather pushing the Union Army toward Pittsburgh Landing, where they have guns and gunboats, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But here we...
Let me just make a game time audible here. Parker mentioned the site of the original church. This is still an active congregation, the Shiloh Methodist Church. Right there, here's the building we were just inside. So you can see the relationship between these two structures.
Good, and that's the second audible of the day so far. And I think now you're seeing the church is active there. It is still a cemetery out there. You can see it. But if you look around too, if you caught during the pans, you know, there's some cannons over there, and there's some, you know, and monumentation over there. I look over here, and it's right on the battle lines here. So what you're seeing is a Union line that can't possibly hold. There's going to be fighting here on the 6th, and there's going to be fighting here on the 7th that we haven't even talked about yet. So Parker, have this make sense.
Well, let's just see where. Yeah.
Oh, this one.
There we go.
Sorry.
There we go.
Excuse me.
We are right here at Shiloh Church on the battlefield. We have been down to Fraley Field. We've been over to Shea Field. We've been over to Ray Field to see the 53rd Ohio, and now we're here, right here. Sherman's headquarters was right cheers, my trigonometry.
And could you point to that so people can know which way we're facing?
Okay, so this is north, going up, always right on a military map. Top of the map is north.
Good, okay. And north is that way?
North is the latter way.
Okay, good. So we're going toward Pittsburgh Landing over there. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So now the Confederates are now swinging around, and they're trying their best to push the Federals this way. So as the Confederate line attacks is swinging around, and Sherman's line is beginning to collapse all along the Shiloh church line here on the 6th of April, 1862. The Tennesseans are off here on the Confederate left flank. They're attacking in the very vicinity of Shiloh church. Now here's something that's kind of interesting. The Confederates have brigade artillery. The artillery is attached to the brigades. The Federals have done something unusual here. They have division artillery, and the division artillery is much more. It allows for the principle of mass. It allows for it to be under the direction of one commander. So you have unity of command there. You've got the principle of mass, 2 of the 9 principles of war. Very important here. The Confederate artillery will play a very small role here because they are attached to brigades. They're often off in the woods behind the trees. It's a wooded area. So we will see over here, just in front of Shiloh Church, right off over here, Barrett's battery that will play havoc on the Tennessee troops as they're coming up out of Shiloh Branch right through here. This line will eventually collapse and fall back towards the Hornet's Nest line. We'll see later on. On the 7th day of April, the next day on Monday morning, the Federal troops will be counterattacking, and it will be here that Beauregard will be told. As he's saying, Don Carlos's Buell's fresh troops are coming in here, attacking. Remember, Grant says he didn't need Buell. Well, again, if you believe that, that's fine. But Beauregard will be told, we're like a sugar cube that's soaked with water. We're just about to dissolve. And so Beauregard will order a retreat. They will fall back. Sherman at the crossroads, which is only about 1/3 of a mile to the north of us here, he will come up with one of the 24-pounder howitzers of McAllister's battery and fire one of the final, he says it's the final shot of the Battle of Shiloh. Well, you know how that goes. But it's nice to say it went there. And I always liked that story because McAllister's battery, he will resign after this battle, and it will be turned over to Henry Rogers, who will take that battery to the Vicksburg campaign. We see them at the Battle of Raymond, the Battle of Champion Hill, and at Vicksburg Military Park. So that will happen right here also. Buell's men will be open fire through here on the 7th day, on the Monday, the 7th day of April, 1862. Another thing that's interesting, and we'll see this in a few minutes, the markers here are very unusual in this park. We have rectangular markers for day 1.
You want to walk over there and show them real quick?
Absolutely.
Or let's move.
We should do it.
So as we walk over, maybe you can explain that we've got different shapes and different colors for different armies and different days.
Right. Of course, the blue is the Federal Army, the red is Confederate Army, but you got a third color introduced here, yellow. And the yellow is for, I'm sure they don't like this, but it's for
no soldier likes to be called
for the Army of the Ohio, for Buell's Army. So if you see a yellow marker, then that represents Buell's Army of the Ohio, and you see them here, the blue, the red, and the yellow. Now notice this plaque here that explains it all. If you see an oval yellow marker, that's day 2 Army of the Ohio. And almost all the markers in this park are oval for the Army of the Ohio because remember, they just get into the fight at the end of Sunday, the 6th of April. There are only a couple of markers that are rectangular for the Army of the Ohio. The red and the blue oval markers are, of course, the Army of the Tennessee and then the Army of Mississippi red marker for day 2. So this makes it easier to understand the action here. Easy to see. If you see an oval marker, you know this is day 2 action here.
This is pretty unique to this park.
It's very unique to this park, and it would be, of course, a lot of battles didn't have but one day. But if you had something like this at battles, multiple day battles such as Gettysburg, it would be a great deal of help for looking at it. As Garry mentioned, there's no real standardization around, and so you have to sort of play it by ear from park to park to park.
And again, this is why you need to come on American Battlefield Trust events. Go with Battle Focus. Get yourself a licensed battlefield guide. These are some, we can help untangle those things. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. We're at the Shiloh National Military Park with Chris Mikowski behind the camera. That's Parker Hills, who just left the view. And I got a few things I want to say, which I know surprises you. First of all, this is a confusing place, so let me just say it again. Generally, that is north, okay? And Pittsburgh Landing will be to the north and a little bit over to the right. The Confederates are trying to move in a direction where they can push the Union Army over in that direction. But the terrain and everything is really starting to move a lot of the Confederate Army off in that direction, pushing the Union Army toward Pittsburgh Landing and some of the protection of their gunboats over there. It's not the first time that this would happen in the Civil War, so let's keep this in mind. That's all on the 6th. On the 7th, Grant will establish a line. He's going to hold, he's going to get reinforcements and do a massive movement against a really tired and soon to be crumbling Confederate army. So keep a couple of things in mind while you're doing it. Another thing I wanted to say was Parker's really good comments about the artillery. Early in the war, there were a lot of these mixed units, legions and whatnot, where you have infantry, some cavalry, and some artillery, and they're working together as sort of mini multi-branch brigades of some sort. And then as the war went on, some of the largest armies, not all, like the Parks today, there is no consistency between the armies on exactly how they're going to do it, but they're going to start assigning artillery to larger commands. He already mentioned division artillery. Sometimes there's corps artillery, so that a corps commander or a division commander could really mass their batteries. And then you've also got, I think it's about to get loud here, and then you've also got armies establishing artillery reserves. So under a chief of artillery or under the army commander, somebody could mass 30, 40, 50, 60 cannons at once to really achieve converging fire or to have really artillery dominance in a particular spot. So the organization of the armies is absolutely fascinating. And last one coming. And since we haven't said it, because we throw around some things, you know, if we hear us talk about the 26th Wisconsin or the 15th Mississippi, those are regiments. 300-400 soldiers from the same county, town, or state or part of a state. Regiments make brigades, brigades make divisions, divisions make corps, and corps make armies. Now, here at Shiloh, the Union doesn't even have any corps. They only have divisions, and so there are no hard and fast rules. But I thought that might be helpful. So here we are in this clearing. Parker, anything else to add? No.
Yeah, we'll be heading in and showing some other spots of the battlefield. We'll take you around and show you where Brigadier General Adley Gladden will be mortally wounded and see some property that the trust is working on right now at the very moment. Very excited about it.
Good. I want to address one other thing, by the way, because, you know, Chris and I come on here and we're all excited, great to be here, and Parker's telling some jokes and making us laugh and stuff. I want to free you from any idea that, you know, veterans came here and were all somber and serious the entire time. That's not how soldiers are. That's not how veterans are. They had fun on these battlefields. They used the battlefields as bathrooms, you know. So we encourage people to engage with battlefields. Sometimes you're somber, sometimes you're reverent, sometimes you're enjoying yourself, sometimes you're engaging with nature. So I just, in case anybody watches these and thinks we're a little bit too excited, that's probably good advice. Sometimes, especially Chris and I get a little bit worked up, and this is after lunch, so that says a lot. You know, I just want to give you leave to, you know, interact with your battlefield experience the way that feels right to you, as long as it's legal. So thanks to Chris behind the camera. Thanks to Parker again, and we have so much more to see. Thanks for joining us. Share this with your friends. Go to battlefields.org and get inspired there at battlefields.org. Thank you so much for watching.